Right, so, Group Captain, Tim Sloane, welcome to the stage, please.
All right. Well, thanks very much for having me here. Just by way of background, you'll note there that it's Cadets branch. I'm not in the Australian Air Force Cadets. Cadets branch is a part of Air Force headquarters that's set up to oversee and facilitate the Australian Air Force Cadets. Now, just by way of history of the AAFC, next year they're celebrating their 75th anniversary since formation. They were born in World War II to actually provide some basic training to the youth of Australia with the view to them feeding into the Air Force so they could go off and get shot down over Germany. They have survived the wilderness years that Gough Whitlam put them into when he cut them off the knees in 1975 until about 2000 when they were brought back into the fold and under the overview of the Air Force. And our support for them has been growing from the one wing command in 2000 up to about a team of 45 odd people spread right across the country to assist them with their activities. While the AAFC are quite a large organisation, I'll just point out that they're not all aviators. They are very much in the minority. So it's more a youth development organisation. But we've had a very good run of Chief of Air Force, the current Chief of the Defence Force, Air Chief Marshal Binskin, is an ex-AAFC cadet who used to parade at Camden. The just recently retired Chief of Air Force, Jeff Brown, is an ex-Air Force cadet from the Toowoomba area. And he's also a championship glider pilot as well. And he said, there's not enough air in the Air Force cadets. Let's get things sorted out. Go and buy some gliders. Yes, sir. Please, can we have some money? Yes. Here, take $6 million and go and get 22. And that's what we've done. You'll see here that a couple of photos just showing the types of aircraft that are involved with their aviation. The photo on your right there is the hangar, which is specifically built for the AAFC at Bathurst to house their gliders. And you'll see all the cadets standing in front of a DG 1001, which is a pure sailplane. There's also a little Tomahawk there for them, which is owned by a Parents Incorporated body that is there purely to support the cadets. They're based at Amberley. On the left is one of the other types of gliders that we bought, which is the ASK 21MI. With its engine up, the person holding the wing is actually me, and the fellow in the front of the cockpit is Air Marshal Brown on his first takeoff in one of those gliders there at Wakeley in South Australia. So, what is it? Youth Development Organisation. Right? Despite what some people say, it's not a recruiting agency for the Air Force. Right? Our aim is to develop the youth of Australia and to expose them as much as possible to all things aviation. And hopefully from that they will get the fire in their gut and they'll move on to a career in aviation. Now, whether that is to join the Air Force, that's good on us, lucky us, but any part of it, so into RAOs for flying, into air traffic control, into the airlines, the other two services, doesn't matter. We get aviation up and running. It's the aim of the game. And as you can see there, it's administered and actively supported by the Royal Australian Air Force. Now, the AAFC have got a command intent of having a modern training system, delivering relevant aviation-based pathways to 10,000 cadets. Now, we don't have 10,000 cadets at the moment. We've been given approval to expand to 10,000. We've currently got 7,800 cadets and about 1,000 staff. So it's the biggest it's ever been since World War II, and quite a challenge for us. And that's the way they're spread around the place. That's not an advertisement for Queensland to split into 2 states. It's just done administratively. And it also includes a few things in the boxes there: a national headquarters, an air training wing, a ground training wing, and of course logistics for keeping everyone equipped and clothed. This here is not an eye test, but it just shows you what it is here. Is every one of those little squares is a unit at a location, spread right across the country. On Saturday I was actually in Weipa, where we have just made permanent the Air Force Cadet unit that was up there on trial. It's of significant importance to the government, so much so that the Assistant Minister for Defence was up there to preside over the parade. But they're spread right across the country: Alice Springs, Weipa now, Mount Isa, Kalgoorlie. So geographically they are quite a diverse unit and organisation, and so it's quite a challenge to one, administer them, and two, right, all the facilities that are involved. Right, for those people that we've been discussing about our facilities, and of course providing for them those pathways into aviation. The plan that's come up with it is what you see up there now. I have to apologise, it's not a terribly clear one there. It's the best I can get it to read. The kids join the AAFC at age 13. Right? And then what we try to do is to get them involved in aviation as we go along. You'll see the first 2 things starting from the bottom left there, the passenger experience flights. They're just the ones where we can try to get them into an aircraft, right, to see what it's like to go flying. A lot of kids have never been in an aircraft before until they join the AAFC. And then we get into the pilot experience flights. Now, you know them as TIFs. Okay, that name was changed in the AAFC purely because we were seeing too many variations across the board, so we grouped them all under one name, and therefore we have our requirements for what we want the kids to be able to experience. That is an opportunity for RAOs, right, those first 2 ones there, and I'll get into that a bit later. And that's the main one that I want to talk to you about. Likewise, and just going to the far right there, it's the when they fall off the end of this continuum here is when hopefully RAOs can pick them up again. But the pilot experience or passenger experience flights, basically just sitting in the aircraft with any luck with a set of headsets on so they can hear what's happening. However, we will use the opportunity of getting them into C-130s, C-17s or whatever. Right, and they do occasionally occur, we took 100 kids up to Weipa and back from Townsville on the weekend. The pilot experience flight is where we really want those TIFs to occur, and the aim is to get every single cadet at least 3 rides a year. So we're looking at 30,000 flights. That's quite a big task, and it's outside our current capability, and that's why I want to speak to you guys about that as well. But it's when we look at the one in the middle there, the glider flying qualifications and the powered flying qualifications. This is where we have got those gliders there. We will use some capability to provide those TIF flights, but the majority are used to train the cadets up to, well, 3 basic areas that we have. Up to solo, then up to their glider pilot certificate, or in the powered side, the RPL, and then for a very small number to actually take them through, if we can, to become flying instructors. And in fact, we've had some success with some of the cadets where they've even reached the AEI standard in the gliding world, and are there now as cadets able to take other cadets flying in the gliders for their experience flights. In fact, even up to tug pilot, where we've just recently had the Deputy Commander of the AAFC in his late 60s actually got onto a course, and on his first solo he was towed by a tug flown by a 19-year-old female cadet sergeant. who had risen up to that standard in training in the AAFC. So we have the growing capability to introduce all these kids to flying, so that hopefully they will then progress on and join the industry. The advanced flying assessment is still a little high in the sky. It's what we classify as some adventure flying as well, so where we can is to get some cadets into some aircraft that are aerobatic capable, like the occasional CD4s that are still operated, as long as they meet with our requirements, to go up there and do it. And eventually, despite what some might have said to do flight screening, that won't happen because the requirements for the assessors is just out of their reach. But for them to be able to get the kids up to the stage where we can say, well, look, we've had them assessed, we've trained them to this standard, and they can go into a recruiting centre and say, well, look, just turn up for flight screening, 1 or 2 flights, and tick in the box and sort of fast-tracked into the Air Force. So that's the continuum that we want to be able to achieve throughout there, and that's where we're pouring all our efforts at the moment. Just to expand on it there. Any seat. And we have had C-17s used. Last year we had one, fortunately, to go out to Mount Isa, pick up a whole bunch of cadets, stop in at Weeper, pick up the ones there and bring them all down to Ambridge so they can go into a training camp. Not too many kids that say they've got the world's biggest transport aircraft flying them around. And then of course here the hands-on 30-minute flights with the instruction. The adventure flying, yep, the aerobatic exposure. Chief of Air Force quite a few years ago started providing flying scholarships to them. Because we've purchased gliders, it's actually reduced significantly the cost of the scholarship, so we've redistributed it around. And we've got about 122 recipients of the scholarships. Initially it used to be up to first solo, but we've opened it up now, so a kid that misses out getting a solo scholarship, but goes off and works in McDonald's, gets the money together and goes and pays for his own training, and shown that just that energy and desire to go flying, we'll look at them and say, right son, you're proving your skills to get up to solo, right, we can see your dedication, here we'll provide another scholarship for you to get up to your RPL or Glider Pilot certificate. And for the select few that really show promise, we'll even provide extra money in the form of scholarships to take them up through to tug pilot, the AEI instructor, and also for staff members who come in and volunteer to join and have had previous experience with our currency. We'll use that money to get them up to speed as well, so they can start providing some flying training and experience for the cadets. Split them up into the 60-30-10, that's what it is there for that there. For them, we honestly try to get most of them done at flying camps, but remote locations are also used. And in fact, we will move cadets around to get to those flying camps. And that's purely because they're in a supervised environment, getting regular flights like on a daily basis so that their currency remains with them, and therefore we're not having to retrain them every time they turn up. However, if it's a remote location, like they're out at Mount Isa, and there's a service provider there that can provide the training that we require, as long as they meet the requirements, then yes, we will allow the cadets to do it there with the Air Force sponsorship. Part of the Air Force sponsorship as well is that we provide all fuel for their aviation activities. So it has the effect, of course, reducing the costs to the cadets for any flying that they do. It's just a matter of getting the bill, and instead of the kid being expected to pay for it, it's sent to Air Force, and the money is paid direct to the company that provided the fuel. But there's more. It's part of the continuum. We've realised that simulation is an important part of it, and for those of you who have glider connections will see that the GFA clubs So there's quite a few of them who have got simulators going. Some of them are pretty high-tech ones, and then there's the other lower scale. Now, because of the diversity of locations of all these cadet units, what we're doing is I've got a project going where we are going to purchase for every one of those locations just a simple simulator type thing, big screen Xbox type thing with Microsoft Flight on it, so that they can actually get some basic training for it. The basic training, though, will be provided to them in the form of, some training notes, etc., so that the instructor, who may very well be the motor mechanic from down the road, who's the volunteer and he's the CEO of the unit, to be able to pick it up and give the basic instruction on, if you do this, then this is what you will see. And also to make sure that it's not like some of the games there where you pull down on the mouse and the thing moves down. Well, sorry, that's a bit out. We want to make sure that they get the controls and everything correct. The next stage then is where we have all our aviation facilities. We're going to get a bigger and better flight simulator. It won't be a moving one, fixed base, but with wraparound visuals on it, and provide the training notes and have it so that it works straight into the flying continuum, so that the kids have experienced, some basic handling stuff before they actually get into the glider, and they're just one step further ahead. The curriculum development is the next thing, and this is where we have reached a bit of an agreement with the RAOs, but certainly with the GFA as well, is that another project that I have managed to get some people for, starting in January, to turn the current curriculum up to the standard of the recreational pilot's licence or the glider pilot certificate into the competency-based standard curriculum, which will include the training notes, instructor guides, training records, such that it's a common standard right across the country. And transferable, because kids do move around. The parents might get shifted as part of employment, and therefore they can pick these things up and take them somewhere, and they're all working off the same sheet of music. The thing about that is that we've already agreed with the GFA is that we will then gift what we've developed to them, and while I have recognised that there are some differences in handling qualities of aircraft, etc. Our plan is that we will gift it to RAOs as well, for you to be able to use as much as you like. It basically says the lot. There are some things that need to be met. Right? The oversight is really quite important to us. The prime one, of course, there is that the Air Force is, as it says, in loco parentis. We don't have, like a club where they turn up and are able to fly with you. They are presented to the AAFC, who then take them to a club to commence the flying. So Air Force has that extra oversight where they are responsible for it. Oops. Back. Oops. There we go. I am in control. The other part of it there, and I'm pretty sure that most of the schools will have it anyway, is the working with children checks. And that's a really important thing for us. They're not terribly hard. It's a matter of getting an application form filled in. It's actually sent off for a police check. It turns up, and then you're given a blue card to be able to work with children. That is only for the case where you're going to be in situations where you will be left alone with the kids. Okay, cockpits aside, you can't get away from that. You don't need a blue card to have a teenager to go flying in an aircraft. But any other ones there, like if you were to be involved in a camp with the cadets, you would be expected to have a blue card to be able to do that. And because of the due diligence requirements with the WHS Act, Air Force has some very strict processes in place for the way we operate. Those due diligence requirements are met through the airworthiness system that we have in place. The main thing is that aircraft are operated to acceptable standards, right, by a recognised National Airworthiness Authority. In Australia here, that's CASA. Air Force will not go doing extra checks because it's just reinventing the wheel. Right? We've accepted what CASA says is good enough, and therefore we will fly with them there. Why are we like that? And it's from some really hard lessons that were learnt. The technical airworthiness side of it is from some significant accidents that happened. The Nomad is the one where the tail fell off and killed Glenn Donovan in South Australia. The Mackie was where the wing collapsed during some air combat manoeuvring and killed Russ Page. They were both technical issues, right? The Nomad tail falling off because it wasn't recognised that that aircraft had been sitting there for hundreds of hours with the engines running at full power on the ground. It wasn't recorded. So the tail was fatigued and it only had 15 or 20 hours on it when the tail fell off. The Mackie was from misdrilled holes during the life of type extension, which actually reduced the life of the aircraft. That created fatigue cracking, and unfortunately the wing folded while under G. So it's gotten a fairly complex airworthiness system in place as far as the technical side of it goes. Now, to the majority of people, you'd think that airworthiness is only for the technical side of things. Well, it isn't. In Air Force, right, or in fact in the Defence Force, there's an operational side as well. Once again, born from some really bad accidents and some very hard lessons learned. Of course, the 707, I taught all three pilots on that. And of course, the Black Hawk accident, the mid-air collision that happened in '96 up at High Range in Townsville. That brought about changes to the way the operations are done. It's best summarised by this one statement that we have in the Airworthiness Manual for Air Force. I've highlighted them in red, those words that are particularly important for it there. So you can see that from those words there are technical and operational imperatives. I'll just click the next one, which just lists them on either side. Now, correct mission equipment, that's not going to count for you because defence aircraft, of course, continually are changed as their roles change, and in fact roles changing significantly affects the fatigue life of an aircraft. And it's always very carefully monitored to make sure that we're not putting an aircraft into something that it wasn't designed for. The competent and authorised individuals, approved procedures and instructions, and a system of supervision and monitoring. Does RAOs have those? I reckon. You don't? Yeah? Well, tick, tick, tick. Okay? The technical side of it. This is where it gets harder. Designed, constructed and maintained to approved standards. Okay, that's where an aircraft has something such as a type certificate issued by a recognised National Airworthiness Authority. The maintenance of it, of course. manuals, so that it does have a system of maintenance that's there and can be referred to, and it's done by an approved organisation by competent persons. When we talk to GA, clubs and whatever, holding an AOC actually meets most of that. So there are certain standards that are imposed that will just basically cover everything that's there. This, Air Force thrives on regulation and everything like that. But the thing about it is that it's basically, as I said there, it's recognised by a National Airworthiness Authority and to an acceptable standard. Gliders, JAR 22. And certified as airworthy under an Australian issued certificate. And that's the list of ones that are done without question. So if it has those type certificates issued in those countries, then it's fine. And there are quite a few, I think, of your 3-axis aircraft at least that are built in those countries and certified by them. Yes? No?
Yes.
Things like TechMan, etc.
Yes. The question, Tim, maybe LSA manufacturer.
That will require further investigation. Okay. So, the other thing about it as well is that when we engage people to work with us, and as we've been discussing over the last couple of days, the safety culture is to be able to participate in the safety system. Right? With the AAFC, we've been pushing them to get a reporting culture going. Pleased to see that it is actually happening. We had to buy an in-house system that will actually talk to ATSB, to the GFA, etc. And it's one that we will see about getting plugged into the RAL system as well. And really pushing them to start reporting any incidents that are happening. Because we've got basically the biggest fleet of gliders in the country now, and we're pushing this culture onto them, we're actually finding that the reporting of an incident or a maintenance issue with one aircraft, and we see, oh, this could be a problem, so we send it out to all the other units that are operating gliders. Have you seen this as well? And they might come back and say, well, yes. So instead of being the onesies and twosies that are quite common right across the board, right, as a group we're finding that we're getting far better data collected on how the aircraft are going. And therefore, we've got the power to be able to go back to the manufacturer and say, hey, listen, these are still new aircraft under the warranty, and we've got these issues on X number of these aircraft. We want a resolution now, please. And it's finally providing feedback to the manufacturer, and we're actually having some really good results with the two type manufacturers there. But it's just getting that culture developed of reporting, and allowing us then to feed the data to things like the GFA, because they just have not been collecting that sort of data. So they're the main things that we need for it there, to be able to get the aviation going, right, for the cadets. And what I want to do is to say that while previously the RAOS aircraft have been basically ruled out, well, change is coming, it's inevitable, and to just stick with that is, in my belief, backwards thinking. And we need to engage with RAOS to see how we can hopefully, engage with you to get some, some kids involved with your flying, to get some money going to you as well, and of course at the end of the day that they will turn around and come back to you to help to keep your industry going. And there may be further stuff like, we've got radio control models that may become RPVs. But yeah, they're all the sorts of things that they do there as well. Of course, 22 is very common throughout and very much favoured. So that's it in a nutshell. Haven't scared you?
There's got to be some questions.
No? There's got to be some questions though.
Yep. We'll get you a microphone.
I will say that it's still a long way off. I've still got lots of arguments to go through. I will be engaging with our Director General of Technical Airworthiness to keep pushing the arguments and making sure that, because they have the responsibility, to make sure that the risk management side of it there meets with their expectations. But I believe that it is possible.
Unfortunately, I just missed one of the comments you made there in rounding up. But going it referred, I thought, to what you said about current Australian or current aircraft within RA are not approved. Is that what you said, or something to that extent?
In the past, yes. Yeah. Somewhere along the line has said, no, we will not engage with aircraft in RAOS. It's got to be a GA VH standard, right? That is under an AOC. So it meets all those standards there. Now, while that, and I must admit I haven't seen it in writing, right? It's almost the folklore stage. So I want to break down that barrier.
It's just that going back into the previous slide you had there, you talked about recognised organisational countries. There was no mention of any aircraft that's a certified aircraft that's been manufactured in Australia as an approved aircraft. That's the way I read that.
No, the Australian National Airworthiness Authority is CASA. So it's got a CASA type certificate, and yes, it meets that requirement.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, I spoke to, well, it was more than that, Mike Kelly, who was the federal member, about starting up a cadet, an Air Force cadet unit in the Snowy Mountains, around Cooma it was at the time actually. And he made the comment that we had to sort out the infrastructure in Cooma first. Now, I don't know if things have changed, but what is the process for starting one of your units up in a different part of the country that one doesn't exist?
It's community engagement, first of all, whether the community approaches AAFC to do it. And it is a bit of a drawn-out process, but the AAFC will be able to tell you all the things that need to be done for it there. It's confirming that there are sufficient numbers to make it viable. More teenagers, but more importantly is there are sufficient volunteers to be the staff members, because that is the weakest link in the whole change. Finding people who have the capacity to be able to devote that time to run the organisation. We would then locate premises for them. Whereas the Army tends to do school-based, we're more community-based. So we'll work on finding somewhere and then build it up. And unfortunately, getting the premises is probably the most painful thing. It's like sticking two forks in your eyes. It's so painful.
So you're actually saying that the Air Force is not allied to schools, but the Navy and the Army cadets are, but the Air Force is separate?
In general, the Air Force isn't, but there are some exceptions, long-term exceptions, and if a school presents itself as being willing and able to do so, and willing to allow us to use some of their facilities, then yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? So it's going to be an early bar o'clock. This is good.
Yeah, Ken Flower from Narrabri. Thanks for that. I've been involved with the cadets in with the GFA, and it is a marvellous scheme. You're doing a great job. I think it's just fabulous, the development for children, and I'm glad that you're working now to look at RAOS, because I personally do not see any structural difference between the way RAOS acts under the sporting aviation rules in Australia than GFA. Our standards are just as good, if not better. We've probably got more facilities in remote places, and some of the biggest needs that I see for young students, and especially where we come from in the Aboriginal community, are in remote places, and I think RAIOS is an ideal place to be able to create the sort of environment. It's not just flying, it's doing some of the lectures, it's doing some of the engagement and getting them going. I just see it as a great opportunity, and I would just encourage you to move along as fast as you can. And if we in rural areas can help move any of those roadblocks, please give us a call.
Yep, my thoughts exactly. And it's in those remote locations where it's very difficult for the kids to come down to get their flying at a camp or at the locations, Charters, Powers, Bathurst, Warwick, etc. Where if we can find an RAIOS that meets all those requirements, then yes, we'll work to engage with them, so that you can have a couple of weekends, a few times a year, of flying the kids. Any other questions?
Tim, I'm lucky enough to have a young fellow flying with me who has a great interest in joining the Air Force. And I said to him, have you looked at the cadets? And he said, yeah, I was a member of the cadets. He said that there was too much yelling and screaming and drill. Hadn't got enough aviation, so I gave it up. And so I'm trying to encourage him to stay with flying and told him to stick with the flying part. But yeah, that was the feedback I got from the young fellow.
Yeah. It's surprising the amount of drills they do. It's disappointing, I must say. As an aviator, I never really keen on how many of them do like to do drill. But that's why we've gone and purchased these gliders, and I didn't mention it, but we're also just starting a project to acquire a fleet of powered aircraft as well, that we will position around the country to provide the powered side of the it's absolute first stages right now. We haven't even got the people together, but we're trying to do some number crunching to work out what the fleet will be, and then of course work the finances and everything else. But it is growing, and yes, there will be more aviation in it, whether the others like it or not. Anything else? No? Okay, well thank you very much for doing it there. It's great to be here and see just how the RAIOS goes. It's a complete eye-opener for me. I had no idea what to expect when I came in. But I must say though, every aircraft I've flown, sorry, you pull the nose up and it climbs. That's what Mackies and whatever do. Okay. Thank you very much.
So that was quite an interesting presentation, would you agree?
Yes.
Do you think we're heading in an appropriate direction?
Yes.
Do you see the importance of our changed reporting culture, our strategies for safety, all those sorts of things that we're working towards? We're actually trying to align. We had an earlier meeting, as I said, with Tim and Peter John. It's a very exciting opportunity. It's going to start at a certain level, but if we prove ourselves as an organisation, to coin a phrase, the sky's the limit. Now, just on one of those points that Tim raised, last year we had a presentation about working with children and the checks required. Part of the information we'll be providing after this conference on our CFI resource area will be information for each state about working with children. I'll check with Tim to see whether each state's requirements are sufficient, but it's something that as an organisation and as CFIs you should be looking at anyway. So that information will be available as one of the requirements being ticked off, and we'll be working closely with the AAFC in the future, obviously, to work out some of the other requirements, and we'll keep you guys posted as that comes along. So, pretty good day today. I'm pretty happy with all of that. You guys enjoyed the day so far?
Yep.
Awesome. Yep, very good. We've got an 8:30 start tomorrow morning. So yeah, you have to get out of bed a little bit earlier. But we've got quite a jam-packed morning before we break for lunch and conference close. As I said, dinner tonight, 7 o'clock in this room. We've been asked to clear the room at 5 o'clock. We've got a couple of minutes up our sleeves, so you can still chat for a little bit. And it will be in this room at 7 o'clock with a keynote speaker in the form of Squadron Leader Sarah Stalker. The intent there, as I said before, is to try and open up some other opportunities to the 95% of the population we don't currently train, which is the female population. So we'd like to turn some of that population around, and again, there's a whole untapped market there. So thank you, gentlemen, ladies. We'll reconvene for dinner at 7 o'clock.